became city attorney, and in November 1855, Arthur MacArthur was elected lieutenant governor of Wisconsin. The next year, the Democratic governor was briefly ousted, while the state Supreme Court looked into allegations of ballot rigging in his election. For 4 days, while the court made up its collective mind, Arthur MacArthur served as governor. The elected governor was eventually allowed to resume his post, although he turned out, once restored to office, to have palms that required periodic greasing, and Arthur returned to the lieutenant governorship. In 1857, MacArthur was elected to a circuit judgeship, a position he held for 12 years. In the meantime, the Republican Party arose from the wreckage of normal political life, and the hapless, bitterly divided Democrats looked on like bemused spectators as Abraham Lincoln became president and the South seceded. In April 1861, a month after Lincoln's first inauguration, Confederate artillery opened fire on Fort Sumter, guarding the sea entrance to Charleston, South Carolina. The fort surrendered after 2 days of fierce bombardment. Lincoln called on the states to provide 75,000 militia. On May 3rd, he issued a second call. He wanted 42,000 volunteers to come to the aid of the Union and serve for 3 years. What he got instead was 230,000 men. Throughout the North, there was a stampede to the colors. Men young and old, men who had never dreamed of giving up their lives as farmers, clerks, and mechanics, were seized with a desire for soldiering and suppressing the rebellion. Adolescent students, too, like Arthur MacArthur, Jr., could think of nothing else, certainly of nothing more urgent, more interesting, or more patriotic. When the 6th Volunteer Infantry Regiment paraded through Milwaukee in July 1861 on its way to the railroad station, Arthur Jr., less than a month past his 16th birthday, went to every company commander, all 10 of them, begging to be allowed to enlist in his company. "No, my boy," one of them told him bluntly, "you are not old enough and strong enough for a soldier. You would not last a month." Another, more sympathetic, said, "You would better be a scholar than a soldier anyway." "I propose to do both, sir," said Arthur Jr. At home, he talked nothing but war. Even before the South seceded, he was interested in going to Annapolis. One of his closest friends, living 2 houses away, was a lively youth named Charles King, the acknowledged leader of the neighborhood's teenage boys. King was about to go to West Point, and would one day be famous as the leading writer on the old Army in the Wild West. The judge's son suddenly wanted to don the Army blue too. Instead, the judge sent him to a private military school, from where the boy might hope to go on to West Point. In May 1862, Arthur Jr. visited the White House, accompanied by James R. Doolittle, senior senator from Wisconsin, and bearing a letter from the judge to Abraham Lincoln. A desire to go into the military service of the country has become the absorbing object of his very existence, the judge had written. He vouched for his son's good health, keen intelligence, and ardent patriotism. He urged the president to give him a cadetship, a prize he treasures above every other earthly possession. Of the 10 at-large appointments in his gift, Lincoln had already awarded 2 to young men from Wisconsin, one of them being Charles King, and here was a Democratic supplicant asking for a third. The president allowed himself to be persuaded, but there were no vacancies for the class of 1866. The adjutant general was ordered to award an at-large appointment to Arthur MacArthur, Jr. for the class of 1867, which would be enrolled in June 1863. That didn't satisfy young Arthur. The rebellion might be stamped out before the class of '67 graduated. It might even be over before he went to West Point, although Union Army failures in the first year of the fighting seemed to promise a protracted struggle. As his father had told the president, he was totally absorbed in ambitions of soldiering. The boy was determined to go to war. He secured a commission in the newly formed 24th Volunteer Infantry Regiment. Arthur MacArthur, Jr. was made a lieutenant and appointed regiment adjutant. Barely 17, he looked young for his age. The regiment's first muster in roll, compiled in August 1862, gave his occupation